Good evening, you're watching AnewZ. I'm Dilek Tuna. Here are the headlines. Donald Trump announces that his meeting with Vladimir Putin is set to take place on the 15th of August in Alaska. Nagasaki marks 80 years since the atomic bomb struck the city. The President of Azerbaijan and Prime Minister of Armenia sign a joint declaration during the meeting held in Washington, D.C. US President Donald Trump has confirmed he will meet Vladimir Putin in Alaska next week for talks aimed at ending the war in Ukraine. Trump says a peace deal is within reach, but Kyiv has yet to respond.
US President Donald Trump announced a pivotal meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin set for August 15th in Alaska.
Europe wants to see peace. The European leaders want to see peace. President Putin, I believe, wants to see peace, and Zelensky wants to see peace. Now, President Zelensky has to get all of his everything he needs, because he's going to have to get ready to sign something, and I think he is working hard to get that done.
The talks are intended to bring an end to war in Ukraine. Posting on Truth Social, the president said further details would follow. Ukraine has yet to respond. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said that it is now possible to achieve a ceasefire, depending on adequate pressure on Russia.
The answer to the Ukrainian territorial question already is in the constitution of Ukraine. No one will deviate from this, and no one will be able to. Ukrainians will not give their land to the occupier.
Reports suggest that the US and Russia are working on a deal that would lock in Moscow's occupation of territories seized during its military invasion.
There'll be some swapping of territories to the betterment of both. But we'll be talking about that either later or tomorrow or whatever.
Following their discussions in Alaska, a subsequent meeting is already planned in Russia, with an invitation extended to the US side. As both nations prepare for this critical summit, the world watches closely, hoping for a path towards peace.
In Ukraine's Bucha region, the place once synonymous with horror and loss, an unexpected force has risen. Witches of Bucha, a volunteer all-female unit grounded in tragedy but powered by resilience, emerged from the ashes of occupation and now face waves of Russian drones.
It
was autumn when I arrived. I saw the TV announcement about the training. At first, I had no idea how to start or what to do, but the instructors taught us everything from weapon handling to shooting. I joined because I couldn't just sit idly by, waiting for someone else to step in. While our men fight on the front line for independence, we women defend our homes and protect our children. I have 2 adult sons, and as a rehabilitation specialist with a psychology degree, I'm committed to doing everything for my family.
In Bucha, the horrors of Russia's invasion have forged an unlikely line of defense. By day, they're therapists, athletes, mothers. By night, they take up rifles to shoot down drones out of the sky. Ukraine's so-called Witches of Bucha are on a mission to protect their city. A nationwide battle against more than 6,000 Russian drones launched just in the last month.
Our voluntary military unit now includes 100 Ukrainian civilians. Their main task is maintaining security in the Bucha territorial community. We conduct joint patrols with the police and collaborate with other Ukrainian armed forces units. Our goal is to prepare civilians for today's and tomorrow's challenges. Our instructors are experienced veterans, retired from active duty but passionate about contributing to national defense. We employ the same tactics used by the Ukrainian armed forces.
Every war is different. Drawing on our experiences from earlier conflicts, we veterans are now learning new fighting techniques. The war has changed drastically compared to 5 or 10 years ago. Today's fighters combine Ukrainian, American, and European tactics and use European weapons. I'm a veteran myself, injured and demobilized from the armed forces of Ukraine, and now serve as an instructor. Before, I was the unit staff commander. Now I teach civilians how to survive quickly, not to kill.
Our team calls me Santa because I live near the residence of Santa Claus. We even have many Christmas stories connected to that. I adopted the name to symbolize my role in protecting our country. My 2 children anchored my decision. I had to act. This isn't civilian life, it's military service, and I had to switch immediately. As a mother and a wife, I'll do everything to protect my family, my neighbors, our relatives, and the families of those who went to defend us.
Jordan has parachuted more aid into Gaza in a bid to ease the worsening hunger crisis. But UN agencies warn the deliveries are nowhere near enough, urging Israel to open land routes for food and supplies. Pallets of food floated down over Gaza on Saturday as part of Jordan's ongoing relief efforts. Calls are mounting for greater access for humanitarian convoys, with agencies insisting that land routes are the only way to meet the scale of need. The UN's Humanitarian Affairs Office said food consumption across Gaza has declined to its lowest level since the onset of the war. It comes as Israel's Security Cabinet approved plans to seize control of Gaza City. Iran says its cooperation with the UN nuclear agency needs a new framework, accusing the IAEA of politicizing its peaceful nuclear program. Tehran criticized a recent resolution and confirmed that upcoming talks with the agency will focus on redefining future engagement, not inspections. Our Touraj Shiraliliu has more.
Foreign Ministry spokesman Baghai said that while Iran strongly criticizes the political behavior of the International Atomic Energy Agency IAEA, it remains committed to its obligations under the NPT and as the agency's member state. Speaking in a radio interview, he added, "The report by the IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi about Iran's peaceful nuclear program contained false information, and the subsequent resolution attributed lies to Iran." He was referring to the IAEA's Board of Governors resolution last June on Iran's non-compliance following Grossi's report, which Iran says served as a pretext to the airstrikes days later by Israel and US on its nuclear sites under the agency's safeguards. Tehran denounced the board's resolution as well as Grossi's failure to condemn the attack on its civilian nuclear sites, and Iran's parliament suspended the country's cooperation with the UN nuclear agency. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has said that Tehran's relations with the IAEA need a new framework for cooperation following the agency's inaction in the wake of the Israel-US war on Iran. Spokesman Baghai also said that the upcoming visit by an IAEA delegation is not for inspection, but for discussions on drafting a new protocol for interaction under the current circumstances. He said, attacks on the civilian nuclear facilities under UN monitoring is an unprecedented act that requires new protocols reflecting on-the-ground realities and the parliament's legislation. Meanwhile, Egypt announced that its foreign minister Badr Abdel-Ati has held telephone talks with Araghchi and Grossi on the issue of Iran's nuclear program and its strained relations with the IAEA. Touraj Shiraliliu, reporting for AnewZ TV, Tehran.
Today marks the 80 years since the atomic bombing of Nagasaki, a moment that forever changed the course of history. As Japan remembers the lives lost and the devastation caused, the country's leaders and citizens reaffirmed their commitment to peace.
Today, Japan marked the 80th anniversary of the atomic bombing of Nagasaki. On August 9, 1945, a nuclear bomb was dropped by the United States, killing around 27,000 people and devastating much of the city. Each year, a memorial ceremony is held at Nagasaki's Peace Memorial Park. This year, representatives from 95 countries, including nuclear powers like the United States and Russia, as well as Israel, attended to honor the victims. Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba used the occasion to restate Japan's commitment to a world free of nuclear weapons.
As the only nation to have suffered atomic bombings in war, it is Japan's duty to uphold the three non-nuclear principles and to take the lead in international efforts to realize a world without nuclear war or nuclear weapons. Our efforts will continue one step at a time.
As the world reflects on this somber milestone, voices from Nagasaki urge that the horrors of nuclear war must never be repeated.
Being in a place like this really makes me wish for a more peaceful world, especially with all the wars and crises going on right now.
It makes me realise that the tragedy, wasn't all that long ago, but still, as the days and years go by, more people might start to forget about the war, thinking of it as something from the distant past. When I think about that, it makes me think all the more that it's something we must never forget.
A moment of silence was observed at exactly 11:02 a.m. local time, the time when the bomb was dropped. The ceremony concluded with the symbolic release of doves, soaring over Nagasaki's iconic peace statue as a sign of hope for a peaceful future.
From Shanghai, a key hub of global trade and diplomacy, China is strengthening its role in the Middle Corridor and preparing to host the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. Our Anastasia Lavrina has more.
Hello from Shanghai, one of China's most strategic cities, a global economic hub and a crossroads of international diplomacy. Today, it's once again at the center of major geopolitical developments. China is moving to integrate more deeply into the Middle Corridor, the vital trade route connecting East Asia to Europe through Central Asia and the South Caucasus. In a significant step, China Railway Container Transport Corporation Ltd has joined Middle Corridor Multimodal Ltd, the joint railway venture of Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan and Georgia. This partnership strengthens both infrastructure and political will to make Eurasia's transport links faster, safer and more competitive. Shanghai's role in regional diplomacy has deep roots. In June 2001, leaders of China, Russia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan gathered here to transform the Shanghai Five into the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Since then, the SCO has become a powerful platform for political dialogue, economic cooperation and collective security. These August, leaders from across Asia, the Middle East and Eurasia will meet for the SCO summit to address pressing challenges from security and transport connectivity to digital governance and regional integration. One country that is gaining greater visibility in this process is Azerbaijan. In April 2025, President Ilham Aliyev paid a state visit to China at the invitation of President Xi Jinping. The two leaders signed a joint statement on the establishment of a comprehensive strategic partnership and landmark in bilateral relations. But the visit also highlighted Azerbaijan's rising role in multilateral formats, especially the SCO. Although not a full member, Azerbaijan holds dialogue partner status, and both Baku and Beijing have signaled support for deeper engagement, from counter-terrorism coordination to new transport corridors and cooperation on non-traditional security threats. The upcoming summit may well open the door to move active involvement for dialogue partners like Azerbaijan, paving the path for new projects, new partnerships and a stronger role in shaping the region's future. Anastasia Lavrina, especially for AnewZ here in Shanghai, China.
Azerbaijan and Armenia and the United States have signed a historic joint declaration in Washington, marking major progress toward peace in the South Caucasus and opening a new stage in US-Azerbaijan relations. Here are the main points of the talks.
US President Donald Trump has hosted high-level peace talks with the leaders of Azerbaijan and Armenia at the White House in what is being hailed as a breakthrough for the South Caucasus.
35 years of death and hatred, and now it's going to be love and respect and success together.
The discussions included both separate and trilateral meetings, culminating in the signing of a joint declaration under the framework of the Trump Route for International Peace and Prosperity Summit. As part of the agreements, the United States and Azerbaijan signed a memorandum of understanding to establish a strategic working group tasked with preparing a strategic partnership charter. In a major step for bilateral ties, President Trump signed an order suspending Section 907 of the Freedom Support Act, lifting long-standing US restrictions on aid to Azerbaijan imposed in 1992 during Armenia's occupation of Azerbaijani territories. On the Armenia-Azerbaijan peace agenda, the parties submitted a joint appeal to the OSCE to dissolve the Minsk group and agreed on constitutional changes in Armenia to remove territorial claims against Azerbaijan. Another key element of the deal is the creation of a special transit corridor, which will allow Azerbaijan full unhindered access to its Nakhchivan region. The US and Armenia agreed to launch the Zangezur corridor with President Trump as its guarantor, a goal Azerbaijan successfully secured. In his remarks, President Trump praised both leaders for their commitment to stop all fighting forever, open trade and travel, normalize diplomatic relations, and respect each other's territorial integrity.
Today, historic day, also because we bring peace. President Trump brings peace to Caucasus, and we're grateful for that. And I'm sure that Armenia and Azerbaijan will find courage and responsibility to reconcile, and also the people will reconcile. We will turn the page of standoff, confrontation, and bloodshed, and provide bright and safe future for our children. So I'm very happy because today we're writing the great new history. And once again, Mr. President, thank you for all what you are doing for us, for our region, and for the whole world.
President Aliyev's message was echoed by Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan, who emphasized the broader global significance of the agreement.
This is a great deal we've achieved today. This is a success for our countries and for our region, and a success for the world, because a more peaceful region means a safer world. This is peace through strength in a nutshell. Mr. President, today's great achievement is yet another testimony to your global leadership and your legacy as a statesman and a peacemaker on the world stage. Bringing peace required vision, political courage, and determination.
The agreement signed at the White House mark a significant shift in regional relations, with leaders expressing hope that this new chapter will replace decades of conflict with lasting cooperation, stability, and prosperity for the South Caucasus.
At the historic summit in the White House, President Ilham Aliyev of Azerbaijan and Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan of Armenia signed a peace declaration, marking the start of a new chapter for the South Caucasus. Brokered by President Donald Trump, the agreement not only ends decades of conflict, but also paves the way for the Zangezur corridor to connect the region to Western trade routes. Our correspondent Ubay Shapandar has more from Washington.
Turning a page of bloodshed for a better future for our children. Those were the words of President Ilham Aliyev of Azerbaijan as he sat in the White House State Dining Room signing a historic peace declaration with Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan of Armenia, with President Trump overseeing this historic summit. President Trump praised the visionary leadership of both leaders, saying that Armenia and Azerbaijan have now officially agreed to ensure that there will be no more future conflicts or wars between the two countries, and establishing a trade corridor that will connect Azerbaijan and Armenia to Western trade routes and into Central and East Asia. This route through the Zangezur corridor will bypass Iran and Russia. And President Trump said that he expects American companies to do a great deal of business in Azerbaijan and in Armenia. President Aliyev thanked President Trump in the White House, saying if it wasn't for President Trump's visionary leadership, that Armenia and Azerbaijan would likely still be stuck in negotiations. And now that a peace deal has been signed, President Aliyev said that he was confident that both him and Prime Minister Pashinyan will stick to the agreement and to better develop both of their countries. Azerbaijan and the United States have also signed a number of MOUs when it comes to artificial intelligence, trade, and energy cooperation. President Aliyev told me in an interview following his White House meeting and signing ceremony, saying that he expects a great deal of American investment in Azerbaijan's energy infrastructure, and he was confident that the meeting between SOCAR, Azerbaijan's national energy company, and the American energy company ExxonMobil would lead to a great deal more cooperation and potentially even bigger energy finds in Azerbaijan. It was certainly a moment filled with history, with both the Prime Minister of Armenia and the President of Azerbaijan thanking each other and President Trump for this moment that will bring peace and prosperity to the Southern Caucasus region. I'm Ube Shabander in Washington, D.C., AnewZ.
After the historic summit, in response to our Ube Shabander, President Ilham Aliyev condemned Western media, naming the Washington Post, New York Times, Newsweek, and others as tools of fake news, while emphasizing Azerbaijan's genuine multicultural identity and commitment to religious and ethnic harmony.
Mr. President, your arrival here in Washington, signing this peace deal meeting with President Trump, has introduced you and Azerbaijan for millions of Americans who, for the first time, are being introduced to you in Azerbaijan. They perhaps don't know where Azerbaijan is or have certain misconceptions. Yeah. How would you respond to some of the concerns among some in the American media and in the think tanks, concerns about will Christians be protected in Karabakh? And just how important is this Zangezur corridor, not only for Azerbaijan, but for American trade interests as well, given that the Trump trade route is going to be established?
Yeah, you know, for many years Azerbaijan was demonized in the United States media, which President Trump fairly names fake news. And these media outlets like Washington Post, New York Times, Newsweek, and many others, on a regular basis were spreading rumors about Azerbaijan, were attacking us, publishing insulting articles, and actually misleading American public opinion. That was mainly done by representatives of Armenian lobby, the group which today acts against Armenian interests. And today, instead of being happy of what happens today, they are absolutely disappointed because their agenda is absolutely different. They were those who are responsible for occupation because their ideas, their advices, their money, and their influence on different Armenian governments played a destructive role for Armenia itself. If not for them and groups like them, Armenia would have been a much more developed country with a solid independent system, but they just lost time. They lost time occupying our lands, and in the end, they could not keep this occupation forever and actually lost 30 years in their development. And all those rumors and false information about Azerbaijan, for those who know our country, seem absolutely biased, because Azerbaijan is one of the countries which is famous for its ethnic and religious diversity. All the religious sites are protected by the state. In Azerbaijan, we never had any, not conflict, even misunderstanding on the basis of ethnic or religious differences. On the contrary, Azerbaijan today is one of the centers of multiculturalism, where representatives of different religious and ethnic groups live as one family. So I think what happened today will be also a good answer to those who still either do not know the reality or deliberately try to create wrong perceptions.
As part of the US-hosted talks between Azerbaijan and Armenia in Washington, Azerbaijan's Foreign Minister Ceyhun Bayramov and Armenia's Foreign Minister Ararat Mirzoyan initialed the draft agreement on the establishment of peace and interstate relations between the Republic of Azerbaijan and the Republic of Armenia. The two foreign ministers also signed a joint appeal to the OSCE chairperson in office regarding the termination of the OSCE Minsk process, the personal representative of the OSCE chairperson in office on the conflict dealt with by the OSCE Minsk conference, and the high-level planning group. The joint peace declaration signed between Azerbaijan and Armenia has been welcomed by regional leaders as a milestone for stability and cooperation. President of Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, praised Aliyev's leadership and reiterated commitment to stability in the South Caucasus. Uzbekistan's President Shavkat Mirziyoyev congratulated President Ilham Aliyev, highlighting the agreement's positive impact on regional development. Kazakhstan's head of state, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, called it a historically significant achievement. Georgia's Prime Minister, Irakli Kobakidze, welcomed the declaration as a milestone for the region and the world, reaffirming support for peace.
The attempt to organize the Maidan in Georgia is already over.
And to discuss the meeting in greater detail, we're joined live by Richard Spooner, member of the Advisory Board at the Caspian Policy Center in Washington, D.C. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Nice to be with you.
Now, how does this meeting change the geopolitical landscape in the South Caucasus?
I think it changes it potentially very dramatically. And in particular, I think to look mostly at the significance of opening and developing the Zangezur corridor. That is going to be a big change, because all of a sudden you're going to have an American presence in the region where there hasn't been any. You have geopolitically a unity of interest, if you will, now between Azerbaijan and Armenia, in that both have made it clear now that they're interested in having less influence over their countries from Moscow. That's a fact. And this new development will stimulate that.
Okay, so you've gone through some of the main points of the peace declaration. How will they affect relations between Azerbaijan and Armenia?
Well, I think agreeing to accept their borders, agreeing to cooperate on the corridor, means that their relationship will change a lot. President Aliyev mentioned, the demonizing of Azerbaijan that happened in certain American media. I think that there's been a certain demonizing between the two countries for these last few decades. I believe that will change now. Maybe not overnight, but I really do believe it will change now.
Okay. And Richard, what benefits could Trump route bring to the region?
Well, it's going to be a corridor where there are going to be, for instance, let's say there could be an oil and gas pipeline, there could be a fiber optics line, there could be potentially even electrical power transmission, things like that. So economically, there's a benefit for Armenia. That allows Armenia domestically to say that this agreement is good for us because we will be receiving, economic benefits.
And what role would you say the United States will play in managing and developing this route further?
What's been stated so far is that American private interests will be involved in actually managing and developing the corridor. Obviously, that comes with the agreement of the two countries here, Azerbaijan and Armenia, and at the initiative, of course, of the Trump administration. So America's role there will be very visible. That's going to be a big change for the South Caucasus. It establishes a U.S. presence. It is a sort of a counterweight to the present region of Russia and Iran. So I think in that sense, this is a major event. Implementation obviously depends on both countries recognizing their own self-interest in implementing this agreement all the way. But it seems to me that there's a good chance of that.
Okay, and lastly, Richard, the agreement also envisions broader US cooperation with both countries. Which sectors are we likely to see in having the most immediate progress?
Well, several MOUs were signed that touch upon the possible areas where there could be economic cooperation. More oil and gas exploration with Azerbaijan, telecommunications, obviously logistics and transportation. I think you'll see a lot of cooperation now being developed that simply couldn't happen before because of the troubled relationship between Azerbaijan and Armenia. That's going to change now. The U.S. presence there and presumably a stronger European presence now that certain countries in Europe won't be fighting against anything that looks favorable to Azerbaijan. That's all going to change, in my opinion, very clearly now.
Okay, Richard, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
My pleasure, thank you.
Kazakhstan and China have agreed to build a logistics hub in Kyrgyz and an industrial park for deep agricultural processing in the border area, following talks between Kazakh Foreign Minister Murat Nurtdeu and Chinese corporations China Minmetals and CITC Construction Co. Limited. The talks focused on advancing joint investment projects in priority sectors, including logistics, industry and agricultural processing. The projects aim to strengthen trade, boost investment in the Shetsu region and create new jobs, enhancing the region's role on the Asia-Europe trade route. Turkey expects its GDP to reach $1.4 trillion by the end of 2025. According to Trade Minister Ömer Bolat, record achievements in exports and the services sector are further strengthening the country's economic power. The government is working to maintain its growth momentum despite global challenges.
Turkey's gross domestic product is projected to reach $1.4 trillion by the end of 2025. The announcement was made at an event organised by the Foreign Economic Relations Board in Istanbul. In 2024, the country's economy reached $1.32 trillion. Bolat said that in the past 22 years, Turkey's economy grew by an average of 5.3% each year. He added that it is now among the fastest growing economies in the world over the last decade.
Dünyanın dört bir köşesine sadece mallarımızı değil, hizmetlerimizi de ihraç.
We export not only our goods, but also our services to every corner of the world. In construction, TV series, healthcare services, education, tourism, culture, consultancy, and trade fairs, we achieved exports worth $115 billion by the end of last year. This represents an 8.2-fold increase. Our target this year is $121 billion, and thankfully, we are on the right track.
62 milyon turist, 61 milyon turizm geliriyle dünyada dördüncü, 100 milyar dolarlık lojistik sektörümüzle.
In 2024, Turkey's economy grew by 3.2%. In early 2025, growth slowed to 2%. The government expected a 4% growth, but this might not happen due to global issues. Last year, Turkey exported goods worth $262 billion. In the first 7 months of 2025, exports grew by 5.2% to $156.4 billion. This added $7.6 billion to the economy. The biggest exports were cars, clothes, chemicals, energy, and farm products. In July, monthly exports went over $25 billion for the first time. In the past year, total exports reached $269.4 billion, a record for Turkey. Bolat said this success is because of better quality, stronger competitiveness, and the introduction of new technologies in key industries.
Millions of Afghans have returned home over the past year, with numbers continuing to rise. International organisations are urging governments and donors to provide immediate support, warning that without coordinated assistance, host communities may face increasing strain. Tamim Bahis has more.
Since September 2023, more than 4 million people have made the journey back to Afghanistan. In just this year alone, 1.5 million have returned, with thousands more arriving every week. Officials warn the situation could intensify even further as another million Afghans holding registration cards in Pakistan are expected to cross back in the coming months. The IOM says the challenge is not only to provide immediate humanitarian relief, but also to ensure the towns and villages receiving these returnees have the infrastructure and services to support them. Without adequate investment, both new arrivals and existing residents could face worsening conditions. The organization is appealing to governments and donors worldwide to step in now with resources, warning that the window to prevent a deeper crisis is closing fast. This is Tamim Bahis in Kabul for AnewZ.
That's your evening news update for now from Baku. Stay tuned to AnewZ for more updates. Good night.